Hey,
So, were you one of the translators as well on the film?
no, I'm more a project manager.
Hmm.
So, but I can speak to some of those questions. We literally did the translation and adaptation around my dining room table.
Oh,
So I can talk a little bit about process, even if I can't really break down the language in the same way.
that's all right. Were you involved in the casting process at all either?
No, I was not involved in casting. That was something that Disney Lucasfilm really felt was important for them to have the responsibility for. I think they did an excellent job of voice matching. Some of the characters in the film actually sound like the original actors speaking
Oh,
in
wow.
our language.
Mhm.
So, you know, I was sometimes involved or have been involved in a lot of the communications with the actors once they were cast.
Was it difficult for the translators to turn the English version into the Ojibwe version for them, do you know?
Well, you sort of had two things that were going on. One is there's a lot of words in Star Wars that even in English are made up, right?
Hmm.
So, certainly the creativity of that, I think, took a particular, um, not every translator would have the gift to do that work. And so, the team that we had, Pat Ningwantz did kind of a first run through of the script, and then we brought together individuals from different dialects to make sure that the movie was going to be understood across our dialects, especially the new made up terms. And so Albert Owl and Brian Cochran and Dennis Chartrand joined the translation team to kind of go through it and really fine tune some of that work. Um, but then there's another step, and that was the adaptation. And that's where we take that script and now we look at how long the lines actually are on the screen. So,
Hmm.
you may think of some of the 1970s Kung Fu movie translations where there's a lot of lip flapping and the lines really don't line up at all. This isn't that kind of experience at all. They were paying attention very closely to the length of time the actor was speaking on the screen, and even to the mouth forms of the actors, just to really ensure that it was going to look and sound very high quality and very professional, and be an excellent experience where the lip flapping wasn't going to pull you out of the movie. The other piece is humor. And humor is one of those things that I think gets mistranslated across many languages. It's just difficult, particularly when you're dealing with something like sarcasm. And there's a number of lines in Star Wars that are a more sarcastic humor. And so one of the ones that I recall a discussion around was a point in the movie where Han and Chewie and Luke and Leia had been separated. They come back together. And Han says, "What took you so long?" And Leia says, "Well, we ran into some old friends." And she's referring to the stormtroopers, of course, with that line. And it gets a little bit of a laugh. But the markers in Anishinaabe language are such that when you are relaying that kind of a first person experience, you are telling the truth. It is not in any way sarcastic. It is not in any way facetious. And so when she says, "I ran into some old friends," she's basically saying, "Yeah, I ran into Bobby, my friend from third grade, down the hall, and we had a chat." And that's not what happened. And that wouldn't make sense in the context of the dialogue, right?
Hmm.
So then, well, what would be kind of funny in Anishinaabe? Well, saying that, well, we stopped to use the bathroom, or we stopped to order some pizza, those might be funnier. But then we run up against kind of thoughts around what is the canon of Star Wars. And one of the things that the fan base is quite well aware, there is no film on any Death Star that shows a bathroom facility. So, right. So, also thinking about how are the fans going to take the kind of humor that we might interject was a concern. And so, we had to have some of those discussions around some of those translations, but most of it was just the translators having a really great time figuring out how to say hyperdrive and how to say, Starship Cruiser and those kinds of things.
Well, I'm sure they did a great job. So how was the process of the translation? Was it frustrating? Was it fun, like you were mentioning, or anything like that?
Um, well, like I said, I think there was a little frustration around kind of the humor mismatch because, there kind of was this desire to, well, what about bringing Anishinaabe concepts or Anishinaabe understandings of humor in? But I think in general, it was just a really great time. There were actually two of us at the translator table that didn't know the language well, but were there to sort of say, oh, you didn't understand this scene? Let me tell you about that scene. So we realized some of our translators hadn't seen the movie in a while. And so we actually, I held a movie party in the basement and we all had popcorn and watched the film together. So I think there were a lot of really wonderful times that will be good memories for folks coming out of that.
Would you say that some of the translators there who may not have been Star Wars fans are Star Wars fans now?
Well, Pat herself even said she'd only seen the movie twice before doing the translation, one of which was when her son was 3 years old and they went to the first movie. So, I would say that Pat was aware of the Star Wars universe. Certainly, she knew her son was very, very much in love with the Star Wars universe. He named his son Anangong Jedi Muldrew, the young man who plays Luke Skywalker, the voice of Luke Skywalker. And so, but she didn't quite have the same level of engagement. And that's where I think something like the movie gathering to really jog our memories about, well, this is what's happening around each one of these lines so that we can really come up with the right translation was helpful.
That must have been great for her then. I personally don't know Star Wars very well either, so um so when you said you were the project manager on the University of Manitoba side, were
Mhm.
you a part of the process of this idea coming to life at all?
Well, a lot of it, we were brought on at the point that they were ready to write the grant, to put the grant together. So kind of what happened is Dougal Lamont, who at the time was in the provincial government, happened to know Pablo Hidalgo from Lucasfilm and reached out to him about doing, this translation in Anishinaabemowin, connected with Miigaading Linklater of DOTC, and Miigaading and his mother Pat put together the first project proposal that was shared with Michael Cohn at Lucasfilm. And one of the things that Michael Cohn said is the difference, the reason that this project, you know, was worth bringing forward and taking through all of the approvals was the solidness of the plan that was put together by Miigaading and Pat. They deserve a lot of credit for that. But I also give a lot of credit to Michael because I think, these projects are impossible without having strong industry partners who recognize the importance of our language and are willing to, to take this to their bosses and say, this is something that we should do. And I'm committed to doing it. So, the coalition that came together to make this happen, I think is a really special one with a lot of very committed people. So, I would say U of M and APTN were brought in, a few steps in at the point at which we were starting to write the grant and supported the grant writing, and then have supported, the various stages since then.
And I think I just have one final question for you. How do you feel about the finished version personally? Are you proud of it? Are you happy with how it came out? Do you think it'll be enjoyed? Anything like that?
I'm really happy with how it came out. So far, myself and Pat and Miigaading are the only ones who have seen it. We saw the whole thing put together at the end of the sound mixing in June, and Miigaading actually cried. It's really moving to see our language not just as voiced by a couple of characters in a major film, but to be the language of the film. It's a different thing, it's a different experience. And I think it really elevates our language and will elevate our language in the eyes of our young people.
I'm very glad for you. I'm sure it'll be a hit in August. I think I just have one more question, actually. I came up with it maybe about 30 seconds ago. Will you or any of the translators be at the premiere for this translated version?
Oh, absolutely. Of the cast, I think there's only about 2 or 3 cast members that are not coming. The majority of the cast is there. All of us that were sort of central project managers are going to be there. Um, and you know, we also are working with DOTC, of course, and they've made a point of really extending a lot of tickets out to Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principal. We're gonna fill that theater with families. This is a family film. One of the things we're doing at the premiere is we're gonna have a raffle for Lucasfilm gifts for all kids who show up in costume. So, we want this to be fun. We want this to be full of joy. And the folks that were a big part of this are going to be there, including, 3 of the 4 translators. So,
Well, thank you for sharing all of this with me. I hope your premiere goes well and everything related to it. I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, so I can't personally go there myself. Winnipeg is a little far.
well, it is going to also be showing on Cineplex at Cineplex
Oh,
theaters starting on August 10th. I believe you can already pre-order tickets, which are free. And so you will have an opportunity to see it in Ottawa.
that's great. I'll also let some of my friends know. They're huge Star Wars fans. So,
Fantastic.
okay, thank you for your time and taking the time to talk to Element FM. It's really appreciated. I know most of my coworkers are Star Wars fans for the most part. Anyways, yeah, thank you.